Excellencies, good morning. Welcome to this closing plenary session of the 17th annual meeting of the new champions here in Dalian. I wanted to thank you on behalf of the World Economic Forum for the great engagement here in Dalian over the past 3 days. We had important dialogues here, including with the Premier of China, but we also had a lot of working sessions. We had launched here a lot of reports that were hopefully helpful in terms of how some of these sessions then were conducted. We also brought together people around the same table around long-standing initiatives of the World Economic Forum where public-private cooperation makes a difference and where we can move the needle together. So it was a very rich program here. The theme was innovating at scale, which is also the theme of this session. And just to say that obviously it has a lot of dimensions. There is a clear industry imperative, and we'll talk about it a little bit. It is really top of mind of CEOs and chairs and boards. How do you make sure that you are really clear-eyed about what these technologies mean for your business and how you can make it fit for purpose for the future? There is a policy dimension, obviously. How do you make sure that you have the right enabling environment? But many people would say this is really such a game changer that we're seeing, particularly with AI, that we really need to reinvent how we make policy. And then, of course, there is the huge societal dimension to this, which is, if I were to summarize, how do we make sure that this is not really more of a downstream thinking, just to say, okay, how does it impact society, but how do you make sure that some of these technologies are designed with society first and foremost? So it was a big theme. I think it resonated with all of you based on the feedback that we've heard. We have a few minutes here at the end to close, to reflect on the theme and what we've learned, and I'm joined here by a really great panel of leaders. Thank you so much for engaging with us over the past 3 days. Some of you are also co-chairs of the meeting, so thank you for doing that service also to this meeting. So let me introduce you first. Orit Gadish, Chair Emeritus of Bain & Company, but also a member of the Board of Trustees of the World Economic Forum. Welcome. Padre McDonald, President and CEO of Agilent. Great to have you. Le Song, co-founder and CTO of Gen Bio AI. Great to have you. Michael Liu, founder and CEO of Feno Innovations. You're also a newly recognized technology pioneer of the World Economic Forum. And last but not least, Marjorie Krause, founder and executive chair of APCO. A warm welcome to you, Marjorie.
Thank you.
So if I could kick us off, and I'll go to Orit Gadish. So you are working with so many decision makers, not only in business, but CEOs, chairs, boards. And of course, you must have seen it before with other technological waves, that it's top of mind. How do I make sure that I make the right investment decisions, workforce decisions, and other decisions, which really sets me up for the future? So what would be the things, the frameworks, the things to do from your perspective when CEOs and chairs are faced with what some people, again, would say this is an unprecedented technological and innovation opportunity? And maybe what are the things you would warn them about where they could trip up?
Thank you for the questions, and thank you for this whole thing altogether. Thank you. Over the last couple of days, we really talked an awful lot about AI, as you mentioned, and how often it still falls short of the premise. That was a theme that went quite a bit in the conversations. So I want to close on something a little narrower and harder, which is what it asks the people leading these companies. And I'll focus on that, really. And here's a distinction I think worth leaving the room with. Almost every company, including the companies here, but almost every company is doing something with AI. In our latest survey, it's about 94% of the companies, literally worldwide. But very few are being truly changed by it. I'd say that most, even the most impressive companies, are running an AI portfolio. They're running pilots, they're running proofs of concept, a task force, productivity tools. But that's not a transformation, and there's a gap between the two. So what do CEOs get right, and where do they fall short, I think is your question. What they get right is urgency. That's number one. They've funded it, they're experimenting, they're not in denial. That matters. Where many fall short, I would put in 4 places. First, and again, I'm talking in general over many companies, where people fall short, first is they confuse activity with commitment. Lots of pilots don't add up to a strategy. A strategy is a very explicit board-level choice about where AI will change how the business really makes money, and then putting multi-year capital and talent behind that choice ahead of proven results. That's number one. The second place many fall short is that they spread their bets too thin instead of really concentrating them. Now, don't get me wrong, it's important that AI eventually gets to everybody in a company, but how it gets there is what's important here. And the companies that are really pulling ahead are putting their best and scarcest people and resources on just 2 or 3 big bets to start with. The areas where the data is rich, where matters are strategic, and where the advantage is real for the company. Because the technology itself is and will become a commodity. What can't be bought, what a competitor cannot get their hands on, is the company's own data, what it knows about its customers, its operations, its decisions, its results. And that's what those bets that I mentioned are really built on. What they're doing is really working out how to use AI to advantage, how to change the way work gets done, how to build the learning into the work itself, and how to keep evolving. Everybody else gets sort of a safe set of guardrails so that everybody can experiment with AI. And sometimes, by the way, some great ideas come from those places and they get put right back in. But set up like this, a company really builds a lasting ability to learn, to spread the word, and to really make sure that diffusion and adoption becomes built into the whole process. The third thing is that they give away the part of the technology that actually matters. As I said, the models may be commoditizing, but the layer that ties everything together, the data, the tools, the systems, the company's specific technological architecture is not. Now, if you hand that to a vendor, use expertise outside expertise for help, but if you hand that to a vendor, then the company moves with the vendor's architecture and the vendor's pace. So keeping control of it is a strategic choice, not a purchasing choice. It's a strategic choice. Fourth, and this is the uncomfortable one, is many CEOs delegate. They basically hand the whole thing, and everything I just talked about, to the CIO or to a transformation team. And they underestimate how much the work and the workforce have to be redesigned together. The point is not to sprinkle AI on sort of what you're already doing. The point is really to redesign how the work actually gets done. And what are the things that block that? Think about it. Job descriptions, lines between departments, who owns what process, who gets rewarded for what. Basically, the operating system. Now, no middle manager has the authority, and definitely not any outsider, to break those. Only the CEO does. So this requires the CEO's personal commitment to the process. And I mean personal commitment. They are in it all the time. And you add to that one more thing, which has to do with the personal commitment. The things that build lasting advantage, the data, the architecture, the multi-year bets that I talked about, they never pay back this quarter. So when the markets, the politics, just the sheer speed of technology moving pull towards the short term, the normal machinery of a company, the budgets, the quarterly targets will quietly starve them, basically. They will survive only when the CEO protects them, when he protects the group that is doing it, and he protects the work, so that they get judged on what they actually accomplish, how it gets spread, and how it becomes part of what I talked about before, not on this year's results. Again, the CEO owns that risk personally, not monitors it. He owns it, he or she. So the transformation really is the CEO's personal commitment. Now, just final word, none of this is really about budget, although none of it is cheap either. It's an expensive thing to do. It's about a leader willing really to make that call that I talked about, to protect the process, to understand that it is a strategy that the board has to adopt, and that without him or her being part of it, and that's a big commitment, it's not likely to happen. So you need to choose to change, not just look towards change. There's one other thing that I would like to add to it, which I think is fascinating, and that has happened in China in the last 2 days since we've arrived here. And that is that China, basically, 2 days ago, has announced a similar approach to AI. I'm literally just going to read one quick thing from what I saw coming over the transom while I was preparing for something else. So this is a direct quote. China, this is a decision China announced 2 days ago. China has shredded the old college prospectus, rewriting it for the age of artificial intelligence. In one of the most sweeping education reforms in recent years, Beijing has eliminated over 12,000 university degree programs, dismissing many as relics of a bygone era. It is introducing over 10,000 new courses centered around AI, robotics, and advanced computing. Even niche segments are being reshaped. 9 universities now offer specialized degrees in what they call embodied intelligence, a field of research concerned with the mechanics of the real world. So here we have a country doing what we just talked about, and that is quite incredible, and that has happened since we've arrived here.
All right, thank you for sharing, and again, with the experience that you have, I'm sure a lot of people were taking notes. Thanks for really sharing those practical tips, and I also know how well you know China, and so that I'm sure also is worth listening to. Padre McDonald, President and CEO of Agilent. A lot of people, particularly when they look at AI, they would say, okay, let's look at some of these sectors where we can really quickly see value and commercialize and see where it hits industry in a positive way. They would mention healthcare as one of the fields. Well, you are the world's leading life sciences and diagnostics company, science-heavy, technology-heavy. You've been really looking at how to accelerate that pathway from scientific discovery to commercial product for decades as a company. So help us understand overall what's changing right now, particularly in your field with the latest technologies, and overall in then healthcare, what are the particular areas we should be paying attention to when it comes to AI?
If you think about life science in particular, the speed of drug discovery has really really changed a lot. You know, you're seeing 30% speed between the phases of drug discovery onto clinical trials and so on. So pharma ultimately is going to have, as a life science sector, is going to have more therapeutics coming on market faster. And that kind of is really good for society and the world, but companies like us that actually create the data for pharma, we're like the original intelligence company in ways. Data comes off the system, AI uses the data in different ways. So we have a big responsibility of a company to really help our customers enable that. And over the last 2 years as CEO, I've been doing a really big transformation of the company, and only in the last month or two, we really have focused on AI as a change area. And the reason for that is that we wanted to fundamentally change the company in a way where we were looking at process, end-to-end organization, rather than just putting AI over the top to get a little bit of change. First thing we've done, and I think this is with the customers, we think first about growth, not about cost cutting. I think it's a fundamental mistake to think you're going to cost cut your way with AI through efficiencies. You have to create abundance through AI for your customers through growth. Really two big use cases. How do we bring it into our products and physical AI into our products to enable customers? And secondly, how do we help our commercial engine around that to do things better? For example, knowledge management and so on with our customers. And what we're really focused on is as we're moving forward on that, we really focus on not bringing technology, but actually reshaping of what the company needs to be to use that technology. And that means reshaping the organization in some difficult ways, right? So what are the future capabilities that are needed that are not in the company now? How do we bring that in? And also, I would say, how your R&D teams then are going to scale it going forward on it. So I think the things that we've seen, and I've talked to many CEOs that have actually failed in the first part, is pilot purgatory. Everything remains in a pilot. You don't scale and build a muscle to reinforce that scale over time. And I would say the last thing is, in that case, is that you need to continue to compound your capabilities, but in a number of areas that's going to really bring abundance to your customers.
Thank you. Moving to Lesong, co-founder and chief technology officer of GenBio AI. So world models. First, let's talk about the technologies that people are following very closely. So obviously, somewhat different architecture within the AI field, but really building on the theme of this meeting, innovating at scale. Because you are commercializing or you're looking at products with world models. So why should first people pay attention to world models as an AI architecture, and then how are you deploying it in the field, in your field of biology?
Very good question. We have been very familiar with some of the language model for text or images. So, but these models are not able to understand, for instance, a physical world or biological world. There's a set of physics rules in the world we experienced, which need to be consistent. For instance, so we need to understand gravity, right? Momentum, and then the permanence of objects in particular location in order to form a consistent understanding of the world. And this is very important for robotics, very important for self-driving, and not to mention, you need to have a set of, consistency kind of a prediction or simulation for the biological world. Understanding how DNA is related to RNA to protein, how it's going to be, function in a very complex system to define the cellular function and how it responds to drugs. And in order to model this, then word model is very important. And you need a completely new ways of architecting your deep learning model and the way you train it, and even the type of data you need to use to kind of learn this type of model is very different. So with word model, then you will be able to predict and simulate physical world or biological world in a more consistent way, more like following the natural rules. Then you can use them to coming back and redesign potential some of the interventions or some of the drug treatments which can trigger cellular responses, tissue responses, or individual type of phenotype changes. So this is very important, and that's why lots of AI people are looking into innovating in the word model space and how to train it, and also how to bring it to the real world applications. So it's a really cool and exciting new area.
Thank you. Maybe just a quick follow-up on the, if 5 years from now, if we were to have world models as widespread as we have now Gen AI in companies, is it then more a technical issue, or is it more something else, adoption policy? What would be the drivers of further scaling world models in business and industry?
So I think in terms of technology, we have a clear kind of roadmap how we can get there. And maybe many of the obstacles will come from policy, the way these technology are adopted and deployed in organization. So in order to actually make this world model work, you still need to have a maybe physical experiment kind of platform working closed loop, right? And then you can essentially use this type of world model to generate hypotheses and even generate policies and interventions. But eventually, you're going to test out these hypotheses in the real world, right? So if there's no new ways of reorganizing the workflow or connecting these AI model with experimental platform, then the speed acceleration cannot be fully realized. So in some sense, the field is also moving towards connecting this type of AI model to some of the wet lab or real-world experimentation kind of platform, such that they can work in closed loop to drive this process, right? I think it will be kind of adoption and policy or regulation, which may be the bottleneck eventually in deploying this kind of technology. Right?
Thank you for sharing. Going to Michael Liu, founder and CEO of Fano Innovations. Staying with applied AI, you're applying AI to the future of materials. Help us understand what you're doing and how it's also important, for example, for the energy transition.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are very happy to be selected as a 2026 WEF Tech Pioneer. And at Fano Innovations, we are accelerating the rate at which humans discover new materials. So that is broken down into two sections. One is our business intelligence section. So we answer the question of what type of materials is the economy and the industry looking for, and what are the pain points that everybody is facing. And the other side of it is our high throughput experimentation side, where we can accelerate the rate at which we do experimentations on different types of materials so that we can discover these materials quicker. And I guess my key takeaway throughout these past couple of days as an SME owner, when I think of innovating at scale, I often think about technology scaling. And I think a lot of companies opt to scale technology as quickly and as fast as possible. And I think the other side of technology scaling is scaling trust. And behind trust is built, I believe, upon relationships. And behind relationships, I would say, is repeated executions of promises. And if we are constantly under-delivering and over-promising, then that diminishes trust of our partners and our customers. And as an SME, trust is very important. So I feel like trust is almost the leash that we put on technology scaling, and that at times we should stop and check ourselves, especially in this age of AI, when technology scaling is becoming quicker by the day, to check if the rate at which we are accelerating and scaling our technology is keeping up with the rate at which we are scaling our trust. And I think that's a very important check for a company like ourselves.
Thank you. Very nicely put. Thank you. Marjorie Krause, you've been advising companies throughout your career, companies that have been interested in China, entering China, also Chinese companies, scaling globally. Here you've been also quite engaged in sessions that were specifically looking at the US-China relationship. And I think you told me, if I'm not mistaken, you mentioned that there are maybe areas where you feel a little more optimistic about that relationship, also as a result of the discussions here. Maybe you can tell us why.
Yeah, I'll get to that in 1 second, but I'd like to talk about the scaling for 1 second, because we come at this a little bit differently in working with these CEOs who are trying to understand the complexity of the world. And so we're not looking at AI in terms of maybe some of the ways people do for efficiency or discovery. we're looking for it to help give guidance of how you clarify making judgments that you didn't learn in business school in a chaotic world. So I just wanted to add to this wonderful discussion the idea that some of what we do is we have mind map people so that the solutions are intelligent and they reflect the importance of the, as you said, the trust, the relationships, and how that gets built into the solutions that come from the AI. Yeah. So that's just maybe a bit of a, you know, a part of that. But I think the reason I was optimistic is that I think that with the discussions going on between the two countries, I think it sets, even if nothing else came out of it, when you talk, you don't fight, and it creates a stabilizing force for doing business. And I think that the fact that there may be 3 other bilateral meetings in the next year gives us hope that there will be continued discussions. And bringing business into those discussions is by itself a stabilizer. So I think the second thing I really learned from this week is that I always knew that there's a lot of innovation going on. I've been coming to China for almost 30 years. But the scale of innovation today, particularly in the pharma field and certainly in a lot of the other technology areas, means that no one country is going to own innovation for the future. And maybe there's a way that there can be points of collaboration that create more of a bond. It will never be perfect, but at least maybe we can think that progress could be made in the way that these solutions come forward so that we can maybe live in a more stable society going forward.
No, thank you. We have about 3 minutes, so I'll just go to each of you again on the topic of innovating at scale. Is there like one thing that you would take away with you from this summit, either something that surprised you or like a main takeaway that you will bring back to your teams? Maybe I'll start with you, Padre.
Yeah, so I leave this meeting really optimistic is the word I'd use. And the idea of innovation in any region or area being stuck in that region is, you can see that it's, you can innovate locally, but it has global implications. And you look at the different geographies in the world, and you can see China's moving at scale. You can see America's got the capital and infrastructure, and Europe has a deep understanding of regulatory and systems around science. So all of those components on a geographic level brings things together on it. And I think when I reflect on it, it's really share what scales and protect what differentiates. And I think that's what I brought from this meeting, and I really genuinely come away more optimistic about that.
Thank you. Orit, any thoughts at the end?
Very similar, actually. I've always been very positive in what China has been doing and very impressed with the innovation that has been going on in China, genuine innovation, not only in terms of R, but also in terms of D and many of the things that are happening. And the R is becoming more and more a part of what China is doing. This whole idea of having a sense, it came a little bit in the Premier's discussion as well, when he was talking about China 1.0 versus China, what people say, China 2.0, and redefining China 2.0 to say something different. And I actually, having read that 2.0 the way he was describing it from, indeed, a well-known press abroad, could see that there were parts in there that even I would interpret what China was doing differently just from my experience in China over time. And it was nice to see, to not only hear what he had to say, but also hear that he was combining what he was hearing other people say to trying to explain the elements of what was real and what still needs to be done. And that, to me, was a fantastic sign for the future.
Thank you. Here. Lassonde?
So what I feel is AI has already present in a huge scale, right? We know also how to make it faster. The next scaling, I think, is how AI is going to accelerate scientific discovery, right? And then how we can scale innovations In some sense, AI is no longer a productivity tool and reducing the cost, but is a tool for generating new hypotheses, generating new therapies. And that kind of scaling could potentially have even broader impact comparing to what AI have done to us nowadays. But that will require us to, in some sense, to understand better what is the capability and limitation of the AI, how to potentially restructure the workforces in the company, and even inside the education, how we teach students differently in terms of programming, literacy, and in order for the entire society to be able to adapt to this evolving AI and create some kind of symbiosis between AI and then human society. I think that's something we need to think about now. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Michael?
Yeah, I would say my one key takeaway is that the innovation mindset should happen at the operating system level. And if we think of companies as computer operating systems, I would say that AI has effectively taken us from, let's say, MS-DOS to Windows XP. And the solution should be to change the operating system and not just to download new apps and put it on an old operating system that it doesn't match with.
Nicely put again. Thank you. Marjorie?
So as the last word, I guess, I think what I've come away with, and maybe this is just the spirit of optimism, a reinforcement of how important it is for us to have these dialogues. And I want to thank the World Economic Forum and you for putting these kind of forums together, because if we're all better together, if we can innovate together, if we can share ideas, and if our ideas are open sourced, I think we can make the world better. And so I come away from these meetings always learning a lot of new things, but also just being thankful for the human side of this and being able to talk to like-minded people about the ways that we can work together and how we can spur that through these innovative ideas.
Thank you so much. Thank you for engaging with us. If you can give the applause here to the panelists. Thank you. Throughout the days here, maybe I just to say thank you for sharing. And I think what was really, really important that instead of just communicating here, a lot of people are listening and iterating together. So that is my takeaway. Thank you so much. Please stay seated. We have another session which would really close us off. So I would like to thank the panelists here, and please stay seated. Thank you.